During a delightful dance accompanied by lively rhythms, a gentleman gracefully bows to our female lead, expressing his pleasure as the dance comes to an end. As he takes his leave, a voice from behind her interrupts the air with a harsh tone, demanding to know if she had a good time. Startled by the sudden question, she flinches, her face contorted with fear. In response, she stammers a greeting. The Duke, with a stern tone, reminds her that he asked if she enjoyed herself. She flinches again and begins to explain that she only danced with Archduke Kilian because the party tradition required the first dance, but her words fall on deaf ears. He simply glares at her with piercing blue eyes. Sensing the tension, she tries to reason with him, suggesting they move to a less conspicuous location. However, before she can even make a move, he firmly grabs her wrist and swiftly turns her to face him, stopping her in her tracks. He intertwines his hand with hers and demands that she dance with him. Taken aback by his sudden change in demeanor, she can only whisper his title. He reminds her that she once claimed to have fallen in love with him at first sight and questions why she was with another man. Confused, she asks him to clarify. She was simply dancing to ensure the smooth running of the banquet. Suddenly, he leans in closer, too close for comfort, and whispers something in her ear. This revelation makes her face twist with fear and concern as she realizes that, no matter how dire the situation, there is something she must never forget. She confesses that she has transmigrated into the novel and that the man in front of her is a criminal who intends to harm her. The timing couldn't have been worse. On the initial day, she found herself in a different world after being scolded for her habitual tardiness. To her surprise, the Emperor informed her that her engagement to the Duke would be publicly announced throughout the entire empire the following day, along with the news of their wedding in 6 months. On that very day, the Emperor introduced her to her fiance, Duke Iris Adler. She was taken aback, her eyes widening as a sudden recollection struck her like a bolt of lightning. It was a memory from her past life, when she had read a summary of a novel. The summary revealed that on their wedding night, the Empire's rogue princess, Charlotte, would become the 8th victim of a criminal. The prime suspect would be her own fiance, and 2 investigators would fall in love during the course of the investigation. The novel she had planned to read but couldn't remember instantly resurfaced in her mind. Yesterday, she had been unable to read it due to working nonstop for 5 consecutive days, which ultimately led to her death from overwork. Uncertainty flickered in her eyes as she realized that she had now become the very character who falls victim to this love-driven vendetta, Charlotte. Her thoughts then drifted back to her first encounter with Duke Adler. He had greeted her with a formal smile and mentioned that it was his first time formally greeting her in front of the king, His Majesty. She pointed her finger at him and asked if he was truly Adler, but before he could respond, His Majesty reprimanded her audacity and commanded her to maintain proper decorum when addressing others. His Majesty also warned her that if she had come to seek his blessing to marry Archduke Kilian, he had nothing to say on the matter. Furthermore, he reminded her that she had never conducted herself with grace, citing her recent tantrum in his office where she had laid down and caused a scene. He questioned how she could now utter those words. She couldn't help but wonder who Archduke Kilian was. She attempted to make him listen to her, but he remained steadfast. He made it clear that if she did not heed his words this time, he would strip her of her royal title as a princess. Without giving her a chance to utter a single word, even if she pleaded for just a moment longer, he swiftly commanded the servants to escort the 2 of them to a separate hall, ensuring a proper introduction. A flicker of doubt crossed her mind as she pondered whether he truly had no intention of hearing her out. The Duke, ever the epitome of grace, executed a flawless bow, maintaining his formal demeanor as he declared his departure. As they settled in the living room, Adler cast an indifferent glance in her direction. Charlotte's attention was solely focused on him, and she couldn't help but notice the stark contrast in his attitude when he stood before the Emperor. Resting on the table was a magazine, boldly proclaiming Duke Adler as the top contender in Asgard Monthly's Man They Should Date, for 3 consecutive years, the Empire's most sought-after bachelor, blessed with fame, fortune, and undeniable charm. After an agonizing silence, he finally spoke, revealing that he was well aware of her affections for someone else. He made it clear that the entire empire was privy to this knowledge. However, he emphasized that their union was an arranged marriage, and their paths need not cross again until the wedding day. His unwavering gaze locked onto her, his words dripping with certainty. There was no reason for them to meet under these circumstances. She couldn't shake the feeling that she would be whisked away on the night of their wedding. The thought crossed her mind, did he mean to dispose of her the next time they met? The Empire's most eligible bachelor, Duke Adler, could anyone believe such a label if they knew the truth? She questioned herself. Throughout her life, she had immersed herself in criminal investigations, a prosecutor hailing from a humble background in the Anti-Corruption Investigations Department. To ensure Charlotte's survival in this lifetime, she had to gather evidence within the 6 months leading up to the wedding that would prove him as the suspect. She firmly believed that this was the only way to find the evidence she needed. Under the pretense of romance, she deceived him by pretending to have fallen in love with him at first sight. She even asked him to reciprocate those feelings. Taken aback by her words, he stood frozen for a moment, unable to respond. Once he regained his composure, his first question was, "What does all of this mean?" She reiterated her earlier statement, claiming that she had indeed fallen in love with him at first sight. She made it clear that she desired a love marriage, not an arranged one. He questioned whether she truly expected him to believe her words. He reminded her that just this morning, she had requested to marry Archduke Kilian, and her notorious tantrums were known even to the stray dogs on the streets. She believed that the person mentioned by both the Emperor and Duke Adler, Archduke Kilian, had feelings for him. Perhaps her tantrums were a result of his lack of reciprocation. Nevertheless, she maintained her charade, stating that the Duke's captivating beauty made her forget about everything else, and she was someone who easily fell in love. She even showed him a magazine that ranked him as the most desirable person to date in the Empire. Just then, it was announced that His Majesty the Emperor had arrived. She continued her facade even in front of her father, expressing her gratitude that he had chosen Duke Adler for her engagement. She mentioned her plans to accept the arrangement and spend time with him until their wedding. His Majesty smiled genuinely for the first time, whispering that it seemed Charlotte was truly in love with the Duke, and he was relieved that she had come to her senses. He then warns Duke Adler to take good care of his youngest daughter and questions if he has any issues with that. Adler lowers his head in respect and assures that he will do as requested. Later, Charlotte looks at the mirror and touches her face, lost in deep thoughts. Now she thinks all she knows is the introduction and that she has possessed the robe princess and her fiance. Duke Adler is the prime suspect. Additional information is requisite for her. She then turns to look at the maid and asks her to introduce herself. The maid replies she is Martha Hudson. Charlotte then inquires how long she has been working here. 4 years, is the answer the maid gives, seeming to lose herself in her thoughts momentarily. But upon regaining awareness, her gaze hardens as she demands what is her name. Sensing the change in her sudden demeanor, the maid bows and says she is Charlotte von Daryu of the Asgard Empire. She blurts out aloud that why is her name so long? Martha gives her a surprised look as she repeats her name, appearing miserable. She says honestly she doesn't even remember who she is. For a moment, she wonders if she would get caught, but Martha suddenly says it must have been because she has been weak. She probably lost her memories during her hunger strike. She wipes her tears as she reminds her none of the imperial family members came to visit the princess. Due to the fact that the real rogue Princess Charlotte had only a handful of servants, yet managed to endure for such a long time, our female protagonist ponders the significance of Martha's character. Placing her hand on Martha's shoulder, she expresses her belief that Martha must have been trusted, relied upon, and genuinely liked. Martha, however, claims to have been unaware of this and warns that nothing good will come from their connection being exposed. It is imperative that they keep this secret between themselves, as Martha is the only one Charlotte has by her side. It suddenly occurs to her that Her Highness may display signs of amnesia. This revelation surprises Charlotte. In the past, Charlotte had yelled at Martha for obeying her orders, even though Charlotte believed she had never given such an order and had never even employed Martha as a maid. Charlotte finds this astonishing. From that point on, Martha becomes a source of information about Charlotte. It is revealed that Charlotte's mother was the Emperor's mistress and passed away during childbirth. Despite opposition from the masses, the Emperor, who loved Charlotte's mother, officially bestowed upon her the title of Royal Princess. If this were true, it would have been preferable if he had taken responsibility for raising Charlotte properly. However, the Emperor only granted her the royal title and showed no further interest in her. To the Emperor's legitimate children, Charlotte was merely half royal. Their animosity towards her now makes sense. She was also disdainfully regarded by the nobility, despite being a princess. She lacked any form of support. Puzzled by her decision to go on a hunger strike, Martha clarifies that it was a protest against His Majesty's disapproval of her marriage to Archduke Cain, the man she deeply admired. His Majesty despised Charlotte, who displayed no elegance. Nevertheless, Charlotte risked her life by fasting in order to wed him. She was dismayed by his lack of affection towards her. She pondered on what weakness Duke Adler possessed that led him to agree to marry such a cruel woman. Charlotte then requested for all newspapers from the previous week to be brought to her, as the media had advanced in this world and could provide valuable information. The progress of the investigation into the crimes was regularly updated in the newspapers. Upon reviewing the newspapers, she discovered that there had been 4 victims so far. Realizing the urgency of gathering more information before becoming the 8th victim, she firmly placed her hands on the table and instructed Martha to find her a determined assistant. Subsequently, they found themselves in the dungeon. When Martha questioned her choice of selecting an assistant from the prisoners, Charlotte explained that she believed a criminal and a villain would understand each other. Martha was taken aback by Charlotte's blunt admission of being a villain. Charlotte then introduced her cousin, Stanford. She called him ahead of time because he's a prison guard at Bart's. Stanford orders the guards to bring prisoners who 221 out for a moment. As he emerges, his feet are encumbered by shackles of chains. Stanford wants Her Highness to be careful, as he assaulted a noble. The man bares his teeth to them when he looks at them. He warns her that if the princess intends to torment him to kill time, it would be better if she stops because, as she has heard, he is a crazy dog who will even bite nobles. Martha can't help but step forward for her princess's defense after the criminal threatens Charlotte, but her cousin warns her not to get involved. She carefully asks the princess if she would really be all right. She whispers in her ear that John is the one who assaulted the lieutenant commander that he worked under, and that commander was also a noble. She admits it may be presumptuous of her to say this, but John Watson is far too dangerous to keep by Her Highness's side. She says she's aware but insists that both of them leave. She has to talk to him privately. After they are all alone and settled on the chairs, she lets him know she has no intention of torturing him. Instead, she wants to buy his loyalty. He seems a little taken aback and questions what she is talking about. She is straightforward with her intention of bailing him out under contract, of course, but he doesn't seem to really believe it and says if she plans on toying with him, then just forget about it. She rises abruptly and reassures him not to be concerned. Engaging in such a pastime is not her inclination. However, she does have a request in mind, a favor she desires from him in return. She proposes that if he accepts her proposition, he will be employed as a servant within the palace of the princess, receiving a weekly allowance separate from his legal expenses. Additionally, she pledges to cover the medical expenses of his mother. A sly grin forms on her face as she eagerly awaits his response. He suggests addressing her as his master. Upon Charlotte's arrival at the library, the librarian hastily stands up, displaying a shocked expression, and pleads for mercy. Charlotte inquires if this is the librarian's first encounter with royalty within the library and assures her that they will be encountering each other frequently from now on, emphasizing the importance of taking good care of her. The librarian assures Charlotte that she will be at her disposal and encourages her to inform her of any needs she may have. Charlotte hands over a list to the librarian and instructs her to procure all the items written on it. The librarian diligently gathers numerous books and proudly declares that she has obtained everything on the list. Charlotte graciously smiles and expresses her gratitude. She is resolute in her determination to commit the contents of these books to memory. At that moment, a servant informs her of Sir Watson's arrival. He confesses to her that a mere day ago, he could never have fathomed working within the princess's palace. She playfully teases him, suggesting that he can discard formal titles and adopt a more relaxed demeanor in her presence. He gladly complies, assuring her that she can speak to him comfortably, as there is no need for formality when addressing a servant. She presents him with a document and informs him that it is his initial assignment. She directs him to destroy the document after perusing its contents. She expresses the need for him to gather information regarding the case and suggests that detailed incident reports would be beneficial. She suspects that there may be distinctive characteristics left at the crime scene, such as the criminal's habits. In order to verify these habits, she believes that the incident reports are necessary. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of the palace maid, who informs them that His Majesty, the Emperor, has summoned Princess Charlotte to attend the morning gathering. The weekly morning gathering is hosted by the Emperor, during which he engages in conversation with his children over breakfast. This event is not merely a regular meal, but also an opportunity for the ministers of state to attend and pose their inquiries, in order to determine which of the emperor's children is suitable to inherit the throne. Charlotte rarely attends these gatherings, as she is considered the least qualified person to succeed the throne. Anxiety is evident on her beautiful face as she ponders why she is suddenly being summoned to the gathering. She is concerned because this was not part of her investigation plans. However, Martha holds a different perspective and advises her to make a favorable impression on His Majesty, in order to secure an increased budget for her residence. She gently urges Charlotte to prepare herself, as she has already exhausted her limited budget in hiring Watson. Upon her arrival at the morning gathering, her presence is announced. His Majesty reprimands her once again for her tardiness. She offers her apologies but explains that she was delayed in receiving the message. Prince Frederick, the Emperor's eldest son, observes that it is clear the maids neglected to read the invitation to her. Princess Camilla, the other eldest princess, agrees and points out that he has never witnessed Charlotte reading. In a mocking tone, she questions if Charlotte even possesses the ability to read. Charlotte discloses that these two individuals harbored a strong dislike for her in the novel. Regrettably, she clarifies that she is not Charlotte. She responds to their smiles with a taunting expression and retorts, abruptly ceasing the sick amusement, which sparks anger within them. They exclaim, questioning the meaning of her words, no longer able to listen attentively. His Majesty intervenes, declaring that it is enough. He then informs Charlotte that he has summoned her today because Duke Adler is present, and their engagement will soon become the Empire's most auspicious occasion. Camilla mocks, suggesting that Charlotte's hunger strikes were worthwhile after all, as she has lost weight and can now transition from Archduke Kilian to Duke Adler. Another prince asserts that he believes Charlotte's weight loss is not a result of her hunger strike, but rather due to her indulgence in moderation, including her manners and knowledge. He also questions her purity. Camilla taunts, jokingly remarking that she believed the floral scent was emanating from Charlotte's hair. Charlotte remains seated, her smile unwavering as their words fail to affect her composure. Camilla's attempts to provoke a reaction only fuel her fury. As her gaze meets Duke Adler's intense glare, a frown creases her face, wondering what could be bothering him. Why is he staring at her like that? In a playful gesture, she winks at him, causing him to choke on his tea. His Majesty advises him to drink some water, and after apologizing, they shift their focus to work. One of the princes reminds them about the upcoming harvest, expressing concern that the price of wheat will plummet if the supply remains high. He suggests mobilizing the imperial army to plow down the fields, reducing the supply. However, another prince disagrees, emphasizing the need to address the root cause of the problem. He proposes exporting the excess wheat to neighboring countries. The red-haired prince turns to Charlotte, remarking on her prolonged absence and inviting her to share her opinion. Before she can respond, he interrupts, dismissing her previous reliance on the god of grains to resolve the issue. Charlotte had intended to quietly observe, given her lack of connection to the throne, but she can no longer hold back if they continue to disregard her. She informs them that she believes the issue at hand cannot be resolved by either of their proposed solutions. In response, they all echo, "What?" in perfect unison. She questions whether instructing the imperial army to plow through the field would only breed resentment among the commoners. Dryly, she remarks that they are all missing the point. She argues that mobilizing the imperial army to simply push the wheat aside would still leave the common people dissatisfied. She asserts that everyone is simply speaking nonsense. Frederick raises his voice in disagreement, but she counters by asking whether they should destroy the field just because of a bountiful wheat harvest. She boldly points out that Frederick's viewpoint was overly simplistic, focusing solely on the equilibrium price of the supply-demand curve. She then acknowledges that Camilla's response was superior to Frederick's. However, she emphasizes that while free trade may be a valid concept in modern society, it is not applicable in their world. The empire was a nation that maintained control over conquered territories through warfare, with the conquered territories constantly seeking independence and rebelling. She questions whether they would freely export grain in such a volatile situation. Camilla expresses confidence in her own opinion, leaving no room for further discussion. Charlotte interjects, suggesting that releasing the grain to neighboring countries as provisions could pose a significant threat to the empire. Charlotte takes a stand to voice her opinion, proposing that they abandon weed farming and instead focus on cultivating fruits and vegetables, with the added benefit of receiving subsidies. This way, the production of weed will naturally decrease. Microeconomics, a theory that deals with price and quantity adjustments, supports her argument. Camilla acknowledges the existence of economic minors but admits her limited knowledge on the subject. Charlotte calmly responds, suggesting that the issue can be resolved by cultivating barley in those areas. She believes that by producing barley and turning it into liquor for sale, they can avoid any export problems. His Majesty and the other men agree with Charlotte's proposal, expressing surprise at her hidden talents. His Majesty praises her and invites her to attend the weekly morning competition once the gathering concludes. Camellia intentionally pushes Charlotte and playfully warns her not to misinterpret the situation, teasing her. Charlotte silently thinks to herself, yes, she will definitely misinterpret it. Despite their cursing, the royals maintain an excessive level of elegance compared to the criminals. Nonetheless, Charlotte has another motive. As she walks, she suddenly stops when Adler appears in front of her, blocking her path. She smiles at him and reminds him that today is their scheduled date. They find a place to sit, and Charlotte reflects on how it feels familiar, as if they have been here before. The Duke's gaze towards her is the only thing that sets him apart. Charlotte inquires, his name is Iris von dem Adler, right? He confirms, yes, that's correct, Princess Charlotte von de Rose. She cringes at the absurd length of his name. She suggests calling him Renéer instead. He curtly responds, no. She can't understand why he's so resistant. She offers him the option of simply calling her Charlotte. Once again, he responds with a clipped, no, refusing her request. She wonders if he's truly that stubborn. Undeterred, she smiles and agrees to take things slow. She informs him that she will now ask him a few questions. She reminds him that he has the right to refuse to answer. He interrupts her, asking, what is she talking about now? She clarifies that she wants to learn everything about him through her questions. She reminds him that she fell in love with him at first sight. He studies her closely and questions if that's the look of love at first sight. She encourages him to look into her eyes, as they hold a burning passion for him. She believes it's fashionable to catch criminals. She wonders if he wasn't a criminal, he would be her ideal style in terms of appearance. He grants her permission to ask her questions, promising to answer truthfully. She declares that her first question is about his first love. She considers it a fitting start to the interrogation and warns him to prepare himself. In her mind, she wonders who his first love is. Later, she discovered some information about him during the interrogation. Here are the details. His nickname is Renner, but he doesn't like being called that. He graduated from the Imperial Military Academy and currently holds the position of Imperial Minister of State. In terms of family, he is the eldest among his siblings. He stands tall at 185 centimeters with a well-defined muscular build. Swimming is one of his hobbies, and he possesses a special skill in shooting. When she asked about his first love, he seemed hesitant to answer and questioned her motive behind the question. She explained that understanding someone's past is crucial in an investigation, as it helps uncover their motives. She speculated about the possibility of jealousy leading to a crime, such as the suspect killing his wife on their wedding night. She also wondered if the Duke had a lover but was forced to marry someone else due to the Emperor's influence, which could have driven him to commit the crime, and commented that her own past must have been eventful as well. She assured him that she had already sorted out her past and now her focus was solely on him. This confession surprised him, causing his mask to falter and revealing a sense of wonder on his face. He then mentioned that considering the princess's past, it must have been quite eventful too. Charlotte states that she has sorted out her past. She mentions that now there's only Duke Adler in her mind. As she winks, she also ponders it is not a lie. She states that he does not have to hide it in front of her as she is open-minded about her man's past. He tells her that he does not have a first love, mentioning that she does not have to believe him, but it is the truth. She questions if she is his Duke first and last lover. He tells her yes, that is correct, and questions if there is a problem. She responds that there is not any issue. She ponders that he's the number one man they want to date in the Empire, yet he has no experience in love. He calls out to her as he questions if he can ask her a question. She responds yes, he can. He states that he has heard that once she is hooked on something, she is persistent, and questions would she say that applies to him too. She wonders that he is probably referring to her obsession with Killian until now and thinks that she does not think she'd be like that towards herself. She wonders, so he would rather not get caught for the crimes. He mentions that he certainly wants to know the reason for this. He questions what is so great about him as she seems hesitant and wonders if he is getting her. She nervously states that she fell in love at first sight. He shows his curiosity about what exactly she felt for. She doesn't know how to respond as she ponders if she does not answer, he might start suspecting. She explains his radiant blonde hair that shines like sunlight, deep and clear blue eyes. He walked towards city lakes, smooth broccoli like white skin, a sharp nose resembling a sculpture, and attractive lips. She also notices his broad shoulders, tall stature, a sculpted muscular body that seems chiseled, and a deep yet sweet, cool voice. She mentions that she fell in love at first sight when she saw his dignified order. She suddenly flinches as she wonders if that's exaggerating too much, as she knows it does not make sense. He responds, "All right, understanding." The new day begins as the maid calls out to her, questioning if she's all right. She states that she seems to have pushed herself too hard today. Charlotte responds, "It was a very tough day mentally and physically." The maid states that Sir John Watson is waiting in the reception room and asks if she should send him away if she is feeling overwhelmed. Charlotte questions if he is already here. Charlotte does not seem very happy about it, as the maid states that considering her current condition, going to the reception room might be too much. Charlotte responds, "Yes, it is already too much for me," mentioning that since he is here with what she asked for, she cannot send him away and asks someone to ask him to come to her room. The main question is if she should really bring her to that room. Charlotte says that Lassa thought it might be too much for her, judging from her appearance earlier. She also states that it will not make much difference to her reputation here anyway. After a while, she tells him if she has been rude, then she apologizes for that, but her energy was completely depleted, and she simply could not believe her room. He tells her that he understands it as he passes her the thing she asks for, mentioning that she requested it this morning. She reads it as Imperial Investigation Bureau's investigation records and questions how did he obtain this. He tells her it is a trade secret. After looking through the documents, she states that all the victims, ranging from 16 weeks to 8 weeks ago, were asphyxiated. He mentions that the suspect is estimated to be a trained, sturdy man over 180 centimeters tall. Furthermore, she states it is an indiscriminate set of attacks with no specific motive. Duke Adler is indeed a well-built man who graduated from military school, but there wouldn't be many such men in the Empire, so they cannot prove that the Duke is the culprit based on just that speculation. They definitely need to confirm specific motives or methods. She tells him that it would be difficult to confirm the crime scenes or bodies right as he mentions that the last crime occurred 2 months ago. The scene would have been cleaned up, and the bodies would have also decayed. She informs him that she would like to investigate Duke. He asks her if the Duke is not her fiance. He mentions that she would know more about him than he does, as well as questions if she is curious about the Duke's relationship with women. She tells him, of course, she is. She exclaims that the more confident she is, the better. She can't reveal the purpose to John yet. Since she might make it slip that she's investigating Adler, she's sent a summons to Adler so he should arrive soon. At the Duke's mansion, he receives a letter from Charlotte. She can't sleep since she keeps thinking about the Duke's handsome face. She feels like she's going crazy and asking to meet. Martha burst inside, stating she's received a letter from Duke Adler. At 7 p.m., they will meet in front of the opera house. As the Duke descends the stairs, Charlotte's focus shifts to him, complimenting his appearance for the day. She gazes at him, almost likening him to a statue in an opera house, blushing as he remains silent. Pondering the complex nature of the situation, she notes that it is a challenging subject to investigate. The Duke chooses to disregard her, prompting her to follow him closely. As the conversation unfolds, he mentions the difficulty in obtaining tickets for the highly popular performance in the Empire. Charlotte wonders why he agreed to attend together if he is merely feigning interest. In the dimly lit room, she struggles to discern his expression, feeling as though he is watching the opera against his will. She interprets his actions as an attempt to dissuade her from engaging with him, expressing her reluctance to watch the costly performance. Instead, she suggests that she would prefer spending quality time conversing with him. With a smile, she conveys her happiness at the prospect of simply seeing his face. Taking a sip of her drink, she contemplates investigating him further. The Duke explains that he cannot accommodate her request to see each other daily due to his busy schedule, proposing to meet twice a week. Charlotte questions the frequency, expressing her desire for more frequent encounters. Eventually, she agrees that meeting twice a week would suffice. She plans to take him to a secluded location next time, but is interrupted by someone urging her to wake up. Startled, she realizes she had fallen asleep on his shoulder, only to find that the performance has concluded and everyone has left. She is taken aback by how quickly it ended, attributing her fatigue to her recent lack of sleep. Reflecting on the situation, she considers the Duke to be a formidable figure, against whom she had unknowingly rested. He states that in the future he will set a time to meet her and let her know in advance, and asks her to please wait patiently and have a good sleep. He calls out to her, telling her that they should leave now. She wonders what is going on. A few days later, Martha states that the letter says Grand Duke Killian will attend. Martha questions if she will go. She states that she is not interested in him anymore. That's right, as she loves the Duke now. Martha states that she will write a declining letter. Charlotte calls out to her and asks her if there is someone who is at the social debut time and questions why they hold a debutante party. Martha states it is for the social debut of a young lady of Moston. She ponders at the cycle of these types of criminals tending to be constant. However, the cycle of crime in this case is she still does not seem to find the pattern. She thinks about all 16 weeks ago, 15 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, and 8 weeks ago, and realizes that no additional crimes have occurred for 8 weeks. She wonders why it is the case as Martha ponders that she thought Charlotte still had feelings towards Grand Duke Killian. Charlotte thinks that she is the first victim of this assailant. Was a tutor of Corned Moonstone, and she still does not know the pattern. Yet, she thinks that the criminal did not commit the crime according to his psychological state. She's aware that she might be able to find the motive if she looks at the place the victim lives. She grabs onto the letter as she is aware that she has changed her mind and decides to attend the debutante. Martha also informs her that she will meet the Grand Duke Killian for the first time after her engagement. Then she should dress up more beautifully. Charlotte responds that she is not interested in him anymore. The maid has a sad expression on her face as Charlotte questions what is wrong. Martha tells her that she does not have to attend, but Charlotte questions what nonsense that is as she opens her cupboard and looks for her clothes. The voice is heard all over as the maids cleaning outside mention it's been quite late. What do you think happened again? The other states that Martha must be having a hard time today. A wide beaded dress like snow reminiscent of a wedding dress, a sexy dress with an expanded chest and back, and a dress that looks like cotton candy with a lot of lace. Martha questions if Charlotte does not remember that she always chooses a dress that stands out to catch Grand Duke's eye. Charlotte questions, what about that dress? As Martha tells her, this was the dress that she wore to Baroness Arena's wedding recently, and it is made of cotton. Charlotte questions the wedding as she asks Martha why she did not tell her that before. Martha responds, what happened after she wore that? Martha tells her that she was kicked out. Charlotte tells her they need to buy a new dress, but they won't have enough budget left. Stating that there is only one way, as she looks at the dresses questioning what if they use this, she takes out a dress causing Charlotte to scream. No, Charlotte calls out to the Duke, mentioning that if he is busy, then he does not have to come to the debutante ball, and he does not have to attend as her partner. He doesn't seem to have a good expression as he questions, then what was the content of the letter that she sent? She questions what letter as he states he is referring to the explicit letter that she sent a few days ago. He extends his hand and shows it to her. As she reads it and it is stated whenever she thinks of the Duke, her heart warms up in a place where they can be alone. She questions if he is going to meet her. She seems to be very nervous as she ponders that it is very tattered. She mentions it is her heart, questioning if it is true that she seems to like him. She seems pretty nervous before she states, of course she does, mentioning that feeling is known to the heavens and the earth, and it is even known in the palace corridors that she likes him. She slightly blushes as she states that she really likes him. He coldly questions, then why does he not have to attend as her partner? She finds it really strange as she ponders that she thought he would be happy. There, she calls out to him, stating it is because she does not want her beloved Duke to do something he does not want to do because of her. He states that it's not really something that he dislikes. He mentions that he plans to attend the most in young ladies' debutante ball. He also states that if he does not attend the event with his fiance as his partner, then, his reputation in society will suffer greatly. She smiled as she pondered, yes, there is a matter of dignity in front of people, as she mentioned. Then, she will assume that he will be attending as her partner. She also states that actually she has something to tell him about the dress that she would be wearing at the ball. As he asks her what it is, she seems a bit nervous before she questions, would it be okay if I showed a bit of cleavage that day? He begins to cough as he becomes all red from blushing, questioning, what do you mean? He imagines it as he mentions that he does not want to appear too conservative in front of others at the ball, and tries to tell her that he means she will be wearing a dress that reveals her cleavage in front of everyone at the ball. She tells him that she does not have enough funds in the palace budget to buy a new dress as she ponders, "It's not like I want to wear a scandalous dress in front of everyone." He stayed silent for a while. Before he leaves, she wonders if she is being perceived as uncultured, which is what makes them upset. After a while, Martha readies her, wishes her a good day, and tells Martha not to worry. She seems very excited. She wonders if securing additional funds for the princess's palace is her goal. She steps in to eat, pondering how absurd it is that even as a princess she has allocated such a paltry budget. She also ponders that today she will earn even more of the emperor's trust, as she seems determined. She wonders what the occasion is, not believing that he's the one who greeted her first. She notices that the chief of the imperial palace should know that she has a nut allergy, as there are nuts in the sweets. A woman commands the maid to get out immediately. The maid apologizes, stating that with the head chef busy with household matters she couldn't do it. As the woman tells her to eat the pancake, they begin the competition. The first item on the agenda is discussing the impact of the disappearance of magical stones and wizards on their empire and charting a course for the future. She cannot believe it is magic and wonders, but he never mentioned such a word during her first time. Suddenly, she feels something, falls down, wondering what is happening. All of a sudden, the meat falls on the ground, and they all become worried. She notices lips and nails turning purple, bright crimson spots visible on exposed skin, the scent of buttered almonds emanating from the mouth. She tells everyone not to touch anything or anyone in the restaurant from now on, especially not to put anything near the mouth and nose. She gets up, looks at Duke. She thinks to herself that it isn't him, as the method is different, so it's unlikely that he's the culprit. She declares that someone tried to poison the contestants. Her family members are shocked. Afterwards, the guards took charge of the situation. They tell Charlotte that thanks to her, they were able to prevent a major disaster. When they investigated the powdered sugar that was sprinkled on the pancakes, they found out it was mixed with cyanide. They also found poison in the sugar container in the kitchen. She tells them that they were lucky. She believes that someone sprinkled poison powdered sugar on the foods and plates. Then a servant carrying those plates picked up a cake and ate it, spreading the poison. She questions, no way is the head chef the prime suspect. The head chef was absent, so the sous chef prepared the meal instead. She is informed that he keeps repeating that he does not know and doesn't admit to the crime, but they are trying to force him to open his mouth. She questions, isn't the head chef the culprit? He tells her again, as she had said before, the head chef was not here today. She states, but he is the one who sets the menu for the week, and all the dishes were managed under the responsibility of the head chef. The head chef must have done something to the sugar container before he left. She also states that sugar and salt are precious ingredients in the empire, so the other one cannot manage them. She asks how about they arrest the head chef before he runs away. The knight understands her point as he runs to command his knights to track down the head chef before it is too late. The head chef of the imperial palace was caught near the border as he tried to escape the empire, and he's a spy from Cordy who had infiltrated the police a long time ago. Cordy became a vassal state of the empire after the Conquest War 7 years ago. Since then, it has been constantly rebelling against the empire, and the recent attempt at poisoning by a Cordy spy that happened in the midst of all this sparked 3 days of turmoil. Those who failed to notice the presence of the spy in the palace were all executed, and she managed to score big points with the emperor in this competition just as she planned. The emperor told her that she has done a great job this time. It was a bit different from what she had in mind, but the emperor greatly praised her work in this case and doubled her budget. She ponders that she caught the sly-eyed culprit, and her reputation and money went up. Martha also told her that she did amazing. She hopes that things continue to go well like this. She notices the time when she realizes it is the first time that she has been out like this. She notices it is already too late as she decides to go back to her room. As she is leaving, she gets some goosebumps. As I look around, wondering if the spy who infiltrated to assassinate the nobility was just one chef, I wonder if it could be more than one person. Not only that, but there are many people in the palace who hate me. I begin to walk fast before stumbling on a stone and falling down. She asks to be saved as a man calls out to me. He joins me, questioning if I'm okay. He mentions that he came running here after hearing the scream and asks if someone is following me. She still seems very surprised as he asks again if I'm all right. She suddenly run into his arms, trembling. It's just a cat, as she questioned if that is what was following me. After a while back in the palace, he asks her if she was calling him for help because of a cat. She tell him it was dark, as he states, of course. He understands. She asks him to stop laughing and question how about he reports the investigation results now. He asks me if he should start with what I'm most curious about. She tells him that he can digest for now, as he states that his Duke seems to have a very clean private life and there are no scandals or rumors whatsoever, as if these things are a waste of his time. She state, all right, as she ponder it was not actually who she was most curious about, but it seems that his father, the previous Duke, was not like that. He states that his family history is complicated and his Duke's biological mother passed away from an illness 5 years ago. And the current Duchess is his stepmother. She questioned how the relationship is between them, as he states that they do not seem particularly close. Instead, he seems to be quite fond of his only remaining blood relative, his younger sister, who is Princess Bloomer. Charlotte questions if he knows why the Duke did not enlist in the Imperial Army after graduating from the military academy. John tells her only his Duke knows the reason for that, as everyone said it was a matter of course in Asgard. Having military service experience in the Imperial Army can lead to a rapid promotion since the Emperor gained glory in the conquest. War drug treatment of soldiers has been excellent. Yet she wonders why didn't he get enlisted in the Imperial Army. John also tells her that the tutor of the Duke of Adler's family was the first victim. Charlotte asks him to share more, as John states questions why she is investigating the case when she is so timid that she even gets startled at the sight of a cat in the garden. She responds she was just in the dark by herself. That is why John questions, does not she even have a decent escort even though she is a princess? She responds that it was the case where she kicked them all out. John tells her that she is amazing to have kicked out all her escorts for that reason. Charlotte tells her she will make sure to find suitable replacements before John questions should he be the one to protect her. The next day Martha scolds John, telling him to ensure he protects Charlotte. Martha glares at him intently. John wonders if he even should be there at the moment. Charlotte exclaims it's too hot to wait outside and they need to help her pick out a dress. Martha is shocked that Watson will be accompanying them as well. Charlotte whispers that Martha shouldn't be so hard on him, as he's guarding her for free. Realizing this, her harsh demeanor transforms into a sweet thank you. Suddenly a man informs her that it's not much time left until Mostyn's ball, so a lot of the dresses has already been sold out. Martha comments on them being late. Charlotte states it's a relief that they already have some new dresses, but they simply need to take the most simple and elegant dress. The man was flabbergasted that she of all people would wear a simple and elegant dress. Charlotte tells John and Martha to take a seat. However, it's John's first time at a place like this. Charlotte enters the changing room and exclaims she'll try them on one at a time and wants to hear his reaction on how they look. She wears a tall black dress, but I think it belongs to a funeral. However, Martha believes it doesn't bring out the elegance of the princess. The second one matches her hair, but she looks like a cupcake with so many laces. Suddenly Charlotte asks how about this one, existing with a stunning blue dress. That captivates everyone, and leaves John stuttering to give a compliment. John holds her wrist and asks her to eat more. She tells him she's stronger than she looks. She decides to buy that dress. The man is surprised she picked one so easily, but announces she'll have it tailored then sent to her. Suddenly, while passing a cafe, they overhear ladies talking about Duke Adler and Killian attending the ball. They exclaims they're curious to see who the obsessively princess will lay her eyes on. One of them comments that the young girl must be worried about her becoming her new sister-in-law. Suddenly one of them notices Charlotte and greets her. They all begin to get up. However, Charlotte stops them, stating since they're all there, they should have a chat. She thinks it's possible to gain information. Charlotte inquires about how they know Lady Mostyn's, but they ignore her. She tries to start small talk, but they don't respond. These girls are supporters of her half-sister Camilla. They follow her orders like maids. They couldn't refuse her proposal to have tea. But that doesn't mean they have to talk to her. The ladies speak about an investment, which is 500 million in gold, and they're the only one who knows about it. If it works out, one of them plans to open a salon. Charlotte inquires about the business, but one of them states she'll invest all her money into it. They then get up to leave, saying they have plans with their mother. They thank her for spending time with them and leave one but one. Anyways, Charlotte has learnt nothing. Adler's sister apologies and states she'll take her leave too. Suddenly Charlotte grabs her hand and tells her not to invest in the business lady Christina. Talk about because Charlotte believes it's a scam. Adler's sister inquires what she's talking about. Charlotte explains no matter how she looks at it, it's a scam. The business hasn't been established, yet they're already sure about the earnings. They're requesting investment without any basis. As someone who has dealt with scammers, the word guarantee is another word for scam. She knows it's hard for her to trust her, but she asks that she heeds her words. If it isn't a scam, and was actually legit, she will compensate her. She questioned why Charlotte would do that. Charlotte states that they are a family. She's touched by Charlotte's words. Charlotte states if her advice proves helpful in any way, she requests information about her brother, as she's very curious to learn more about the Duke. Martha appears and inquires if she had any problems, as the ladies she was talking to are known for their horrible business sense and being loyal followers of Camellia. Charlotte states if you sit quietly by the river, your enemy's defeat will flow down the river. Later a lady approaches Charlotte informing her she has to pay for the desserts that the ladies bought. Finally she realized that she's been played.